Welcome to another episode of the Unfiltered Nonprofit Podcast. I'm Cherry Chen, and I am thrilled to have you join me on this journey. This podcast dives into the real world of nonprofit leadership, sharing inspiring stories, experiences, and the truth about what it takes to operate a nonprofit successfully. Think of this as your mastermind session on the go. Now, without further ado, please welcome today's nonprofit leader. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Unfiltered Nonprofit Podcast. This podcast is created to be the mastermind on the go for people, association leaders, nonprofit leaders to learn from each other. Today, I have a special guest, Peter Braid from the Insurance Broker Association of Canada here with us. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Cherry. Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you here because of your special background. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you joined the nonprofit sector.
Great. So I've been in my current role as the CEO of the Insurance Brokers Association of Canada for 7 years. Started in 2017. Before that, in a previous life, I was very fortunate to have had the opportunity to have served as the elected member of parliament for the riding of Kitchener-Waterloo. First elected in 2008 and served for 7 years in that role as well. And when I was elected in 2008, I actually won the closest election in Canada during that particular election. Over 60,000 people voted in my constituency, and I ended up winning at the end of the day by 17 votes. So less than the number of fingers and toes that we have. And that was after a judicial recount that took 2 weeks. So it was very on the edge of your seat exciting.
Wow, you must be super proud of that accomplishment.
I'm very proud of that accomplishment, having been elected and having had the opportunity to serve a community, to represent a community, and to make a difference for the people of Kitchener-Waterloo as a collective and for the individuals who lived in that community as well. And that, in my current role as CEO of IBAC, federal advocacy is a very important part of our responsibility. And it's very helpful to know how the machine of government works.
Yeah, absolutely.
In my current role. And when you're in politics, you have the opportunity to form very strong special relationships, and not only with colleagues on your own team, colleagues who may be part of your own political party, but colleagues across the floor as well, on the other side of the floor. And those relationships have stood the test of time, and they're beneficial today when I go back to Ottawa and wear my IBAC CEO hat. It's helpful. It opens doors, and it has contributed to even further success on our federal advocacy files.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, I know that so there is a transition. You were elected and you were in the office, and then you become at some point you become the CEO. There is a transition during that time. And it's not an easy transition if I have to look back and think about, hey, like you get elected and then at some point you quote unquote lose that job. How did you handle that setback?
Absolutely. So while perhaps my greatest career accomplishment and the highest high would have been my election in 2008, particularly in that very close election circumstance, very exciting. And one of the most difficult parts of my career journey was 7 years later being unelected and not winning that election. But it was a change election in 2015. Quite frankly, it feels like another change election may be coming again. Governments and prime ministers have shelf lives in Canada, and in democracies, it seems like the toleration of the electorate for that shelf life seems to be getting a little shorter, perhaps. but yeah, it was a difficult time after losing in 2015. I worked in the private sector following that for a small technology company in Waterloo. So that was a great bridge opportunity. And then this role came 2 years later in 2017, and really provided a wonderful opportunity for me to stay connected to Ottawa, and to bring my experience from elected office into the current role I'm in, and to have the opportunity of the challenge of being the CEO of a national organization. And when you're a member of Parliament, even though you're representing one constituency, one community, you also have the opportunity to learn a lot about the wonderful country that we live in. So all of those things were very, very helpful. The last thing I'll say about navigating that difficult period post-election, one of the things that I did, and one of the pieces of advice I got, was to network tirelessly. So and politicians, if they or former politicians, as the case may be, if they know how to do one thing, it's how to network. So that networking that networking capability came in handy post-election. I spent a lot of my time just having coffee with various people in my expanded network who would have, and that network included former politicians who had been through the same situation previously. And I had the opportunity to hear their advice, to hear their suggestions, and to hear about potential opportunities for new challenges, for new employment. And it was through that networking as well that I became aware of the opportunity for the role of CEO at the Insurance Brokers Association of Canada, and ultimately was fortunately successful.
Wow. Yeah, that is a great piece of advice there. Yeah.
The importance of networking and build and never, I think the other lesson I've learned looking back, whether you're in business or politics, is don't burn bridges, build bridges, and even in the context of politics, build bridges with people on the other side of the aisle, because those relationships will be lifelong, and they will come in very, very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not just a selfish comment or selfish advice, I think. It applies to even in today's politics. If we are talking about politics, I remember once I read a book, it talked about, I don't remember the name of the book anymore. It talks about how like political parties, they don't talk to each other anymore. In the past, they would, you show up at the White House. The book was primarily American-based focus, and they would go out. They show up at the meeting. They would go out and then have a beer later afterwards, and they would treat each other as if they are human. Nowadays, they don't have to come to the Parliament for White House for the meeting, and so they don't even have that opportunity to connect on a personal basis. And what you did is just to build that connection on a personal basis and see each other as human beings,
as colleagues. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's very important. I would say that I think it's largely a myth. I mean, if Canadians will cast a judgment on the political environment because of what they may see on the news or what they may see in question period, but that's only one sort of small glimpse of what happens in Ottawa. And part of question period is theater, quite frankly. But there's a lot of work that happens at committee, at parliamentary committees. There's the opportunity to travel with parliamentary colleagues from other parties, and it's those opportunities outside of question period. Provided that you're open to it, where those relationships can really be built. And those things, all of those opportunities still exist today. But I think I would agree that there's perhaps been a bit of, even in the time since I've been out of politics, since 2015, there's been a bit of deterioration in that regard. And, regrettably, I think we're seeing politics as being a little more partisan, a little more divided, a little more personal. And that's regrettable. And we need to ensure that the people who are involved in politics are coming to it from a position, to the extent possible, of collaboration and compromise. And collaboration and compromise are essential in the association sector as well.
Exactly, yeah. So how does that affect your work in terms of being a national organization? One of your mandates, as you mentioned earlier on, was to do advocacy work. How did that, what you learned, and also the networking and also understanding collaboration, uh, building relationship, help you when it comes down to doing advocacy work?
Yeah, so federal advocacy is one of the four pillars of our overall mandate at IBAC. IBAC has existed actually for over a century. We celebrated our centennial in 2021 during the pandemic. And the current federal advocacy focus really started about 35 years ago by very visionary insurance brokers at the time who understood the importance. So our fundamental issue, we have a lot of public policy files that we follow very closely. Our fundamental issue in Ottawa pertains to one piece of legislation called the Bank Act. The Bank Act is reviewed every 5 years. There's a section of the Bank Act that prohibits banks from selling insurance at the point of granting credit. And we believe that that's a very important consumer protection measure. And it contributes to a more competitive and diverse insurance marketplace. So this particular piece of legislation is very important to us. There was a threat to that legislation in the late 80s during the Mulroney government. And insurance brokers at the time came together from across the country. They mobilized, they wrote over 50,000 letters to members of parliament. They came to Ottawa. And one of the lessons from the precursor insurance brokers at the time was that both politicians as well as Canadian consumers didn't really understand what insurance brokers did and how important their role was, particularly not only in serving their clients, but in providing consumer protection. So since then, we've built a very strong and effective program of federal advocacy where we meet regularly with elected members of parliament in Ottawa. We meet with members from all parties because a member of the opposition today could be a member of the government tomorrow. So it's a very nonpartisan approach. It's a constant and a continuous approach because I can tell you based on my personal experience, members of parliament come and go. So that process of advocacy needs to be constant and ongoing and effective. It's a process of education. It's a process of ensuring commitment from elected representatives and governments. And it's about continuously raising your profile in Ottawa and raising the credibility of your organization, even beyond that single issue of the Bank Act. So we've expanded the scope of our federal advocacy as well and are involved in a range of public policy issues and concerns. And the more involvement you have in Ottawa, the more profile you have, the more credibility you have as an organization. So we go to Ottawa now for our annual Hill Day at the end of May every year. Insurance brokers are very, very well regarded and well recognized in Ottawa. And it's because of that decades of work that our organization has done, raising the profile, but also sticking to it and keeping at it. And it's been very, very successful.
Sounds like it's like a grind. It's not a one and done thing.
It's not one and done. Absolutely. It's ongoing, continuous. And it's all about building relationships. And when a change or a threat may come, whether it's a change in legislation or something out of left field that you weren't expecting, if you have those pre-established relationships with members of parliament, and then you have the bridge of that conversation. You're not starting from scratch when you've got a crisis to deal with. And insurance brokers are very unique because insurance brokers are small business people. They're found in virtually every city and town across the country. So insurance brokers have a very come from a very unique position, and they're well regarded in Ottawa because they're small business people.
Yep.
They own a business in a member of parliament's riding. They employ X number of people.
Yep.
They contribute to their communities. They have profile. They have relationships in many cases with their member of parliament, and it's all federal advocacy or any government advocacy is ultimately about building and maintaining and enhancing those relationships.
So would you say, would you have any particular example about that curveball situation that's being thrown into you, and because of your relationship that you've built, the foundation that you've done for the last many years, and so you're not completely blindsided?
Yeah. Well, there was certainly a curveball thrown in the late 80s when the federal government proposed to change the financial services landscape, change the Bank Act. And that's, again, when our federal advocacy was sort of born. Since that time, because we've been so successful at ensuring a consistent position by the government on that file, we really haven't had any curveballs since then.
That's awesome.
I'm happy to say. But you need to be prepared for them.
Yeah, for sure.
They still may come.
Hello, Unfiltered Nonprofit listeners. It's Cherry Chan here, your host and the CEO of Otis Financial Solutions. Let's talk about something that can be a major headache for many nonprofits: managing your finances. Are you feeling overwhelmed by budgeting, financial reports, or keeping up with compliance? You're not alone. Many nonprofit leaders struggle with these issues too, but you don't have to. At Otis Financial Solutions, we specialize in making financial management easy for nonprofit leaders and associations leaders. For over 18 years, we've been turning financial stress into peace of mind. Our services are designed to meet your unique needs, from day-to-day bookkeeping to strategic financial planning. Imagine having more time to focus on your mission, knowing that your finances are in experts' hands. If that sounds like something you need, I'm offering a no-obligation 20-minute consultation. Let's discuss your challenges and explore how Otis can help you achieve your goals. Visit nonprofitcfo.ca to book your call today. Let's simplify your financial management together. So you're doing this work, and and the organization IBAC has members, and the members are all provincial members.
That's right. It's a federated model.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the toughest moment that you've had as the CEO of IBAC? And what's the toughest moments that you have to deal with?
Yeah. So IBAC, as you've very correctly explained, we're an association of associations for all intents and purposes, a federated model.
Yep.
We have 11 members or 11 member associations, one per province, plus Toronto.
Yep.
And they're members of the brokers on Main Street. We have found that we are the most successful we can be as IBAC and our member associations, particularly when dealing with government and conveying a message to government, when we are unified as a federation.
Yep.
Similar to this wonderful country we live in, and both the benefits and the complexities of a federated model. We sometimes run into some of those challenges at IBAC as well, and it's when we're not fully unified, when one member association may be going in their own direction out of provincial interests or concerns, and it's when those interests or concerns may not be consistent with the national interest, with what's best for the short and long-term interests of the country as a whole. Those can be challenging situations, and we need to talk and work through those challenging situations, but ultimately remind our member associations of the ultimate importance of being fully unified, not only when positioning ourselves to governments, and doing that much more effectively when we're unified, but also as serving our ultimate customers, who are the insurance brokers that we represent from across the country.
Yeah, this reminded me of my own organization, CPA Ontario and CPA Canada. CPA Ontario and CPA Quebec just recently broke up with CPA Canada.
Very difficult situation.
Yeah, very difficult situation
Yeah.
as well. And we're a little bit at a loss. I haven't been following the situation. So we're just like, oh, what's happening? And now I have to pay 2 membership dues, or it's things like that that makes it really challenging.
Yeah.
So you were the one who has to essentially being a mediator.
That's right. Mediation is certainly is part of that role. I think it's important, to build consensus, to find common ground, to be a good listener, to be open-minded, and that again, that compromise is really, really critical. But there are times where sometimes an issue may go too far, and you also need to know, as the leader of a national association, when that line gets crossed. And there needs to be boundaries, because sometimes the line is crossed and an action or a direction by a particular member may not be in the interest of the National Association. And that needs to be called out, and it needs to be discussed, hopefully resolved. And again, members need to be constantly reminded of the critical importance of unity as an organization, as an association, because from unity comes strength. And if you take the CPA example, which was not a pretty situation, I read about it in the Globe and Mail, one does not want to see one's association in the national newspaper. And you had a situation where I would humbly suggest that the organizations that have left the CPA are weaker. They're weakened now because they speak from a narrower position.
Yeah, I see your point. I think they need a consultation from you. They need some lecturing on how to find the common ground and listening and truly understanding. That's like what I got just from having this conversation with you. So now it sounds like from our brief conversation so far, you mentioned that you're the Federated organization, and so I'm working toward my certified association executive, and one of the things that they teach in the program is that we need to be able to our members are also our boss. They are the members of our organization. Yes, we are created to serve the members. So in a way, how do you communicate the member value? Would that so that the CPA situation would never happen to you guys?
Yeah, and that's I think it highlights the importance of associations, and this is relevant to any association in the country. It highlights the importance of associations constantly communicating and promoting their wins and the value that they provide to their members. And in our case, we're doing that across all 4 pillars of our organization: federal advocacy, clearly, with a series of successful wins, the professional development programs that we provide to our members through our national advertising program, thirdly, and then fourthly and finally, through our technology work, our connectivity work to build better data exchange between brokers and insurers. And admittedly, this is still, communicating and promoting our wins is still even a work in progress for us. I think we could be better at this as well. But we're striving to do that more effectively, to really promote the wins when they occur. There's 2 other things we've done as well. We have 4 we have 4 in-person board meetings a year across the country. For 3 of those 4 board meetings, we bring representatives from our 11 member associations, and in advance of the board meeting, we have something called a national meeting, and it's a forum for communication exchange. So IBAC can convey information about our programs and activities and successes to our member association representatives. And equally, they have the opportunity to communicate in that form back to us about their priorities and their objectives and what they're looking for in terms of enhanced value delivery from our organization. So that national meeting provides an effective forum for that dialogue and communication exchange. The other thing we've done, and we were a little late to the game on this, is we've recently instituted a national survey of our member associations. And it's a very, very comprehensive, a very robust survey. And we use that survey to assess the value that we're providing to our member associations, and create a benchmark, and then find ways to deliver increased value over time.
So how's that national survey doing? Is it, we also create a report, Otis, at Otis, we have an annual event called, we call it OAX. I think eventually we'll change the name to ONX because I want it to be for nonprofit. OAX is for association, so Otis Association Exchange, and it's going to be Otis Nonprofit Exchange. But with that, we did survey. It's hard to get people to respond to survey these days. Are you having success in terms of getting them to fill out your survey? And you're definitely taking action on it. It's just, are they filling out the survey?
We benefit in this case from our federated structures. So the survey doesn't go to thousands of individuals across the country. It's really only going to 11 members, to 11 member associations. And we're getting responses from those 11 member associations.
Oh, that's awesome. That's excellent. Yeah. So that's a great idea, doing the national survey to get feedback from your member organization and then act upon whatever feedback that you get. Such a great technique and strategy.
It's an important mechanism. It should be one of, I think, a suite of mechanisms and tactics that you can use to assess the value that you're providing.
Absolutely. Now, I always ask a question about mental health. As an executive director, this may be the curveball that I just throw to you because we never discussed it earlier.
It's okay. Having been in politics, you need to be prepared for the odd curveball. So.
Yes. So, so how are you handling the stress as a leader? Are there anything that you do in your normal routine that helps you lessen that stress?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's an increasingly important question because work in the association space, work in almost any space, seems to be becoming more and more stressful. So what are ways that I help to manage stress as a leader in the association space? I think finding opportunities to turn off. And those opportunities, I could probably increase those, as I say that. But it's important that we create spaces for ourselves and opportunities to sort of disconnect and to recharge, whether that's time at the cottage, time with family, time doing something you love, maybe a hobby. One of my escapes is music. I love a range of types of music. I love going to concerts.
Awesome.
So it's important. I'm the kind of person where I need to have a concert in the future to look forward to, and maybe a trip planned, and ideally maybe both. A concert that involves a trip, which is particularly positive. So just finding those spaces to have time for yourself, and to disconnect and recharge. I think that's really critical.
Yeah.
And keep things in perspective too. And that's, I think, one of the advantages of having served in politics. you are confronted with a range of challenging issues, whether constituent concerns or issues or problems or challenges. When I was first elected in 2008, we were shortly thereafter confronted by the great economic recession, the global recession, dealing with that. So just it's important to keep things in perspective. Sometimes mountains are made out of molehills, and sometimes when you're in the midst of a crisis, it's difficult to say this, but the issue may not be as significant as some may be suggesting, relatively speaking.
I just thought of the message that I got from a close friend of mine, and we are trying to set up a time for golf game, and I don't get to see him often. I only call him for my tax questions. He's a partner in a tax firm, and we set a day, and he sent the follow-up message to me was, hey, 2 days before our golf time, I'm going to have my performance review. If I am not getting what I want, and you'll see me drinking the whole time and really being upset at the golf game. And I said, oh, so I thought you guys don't do decline in terms of salary, because he's partner level. So you're the owner of the business, and you only get either increase or like stabilize in terms of income. And he came back and said, oh yeah, I don't think it is about the decrease in salary. It never happened. It is about how much I'm getting as an increase. If I don't get as much, then I'm going to be really upset. And I'm like, oh, then you're fine. Like, it's perspective. Your life is fine.
It's all perspective.
Yeah. Well, Peter, thank you so much for coming on the Unfiltered Nonprofit. You've shown us a lot of golden nuggets there, including the advocacy work and the dedication in. I think it's important that this world needs more of these dedication in seeking common ground and understanding, and then making appropriate compromise or stepping out of where our point of view is and taking a wider view of this world, rather than really, painting one group of people against another group of people, which is unfortunately is today's political climate. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and for the invitation.
Yeah,
Great to chat.
Appreciate that.
As we wrap up, I want to share a bit more about what we do at Otis Financial Solutions. For the past 18 years, Otis Financial Solutions has been dedicated to enhancing the financial management and strategic planning capabilities of hundreds of associations and nonprofits across Canada. Our extensive experience has enabled us to deliver tailored financial solutions that drive growth and enhance sustainability for nonprofits and associations. If you are interested in learning more about how Otis Financial Solutions can support your organization, I would love to offer you a no-obligation 20-minute call. Let's discuss your unique challenges and explore how we would be able to help you achieve your goals.